What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, December 11th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 14:13 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Venezuela. But before I get into that, I wanted to update you guys on 3I Atlas, the interstellar object. Some people say it's an alien spaceship. Some people say it's a comet. That's what the mainstream media is saying. But we have some breaking news regarding 3I Atlas. Apparently, there was some kind of strange radio signal that was tracked coming from 3I Atlas. The radio detection came from a narrow band of frequencies that astronomers use frequently because Earth-based interference tends to stay away from this range. During one observing session, a short-lived signal rose above the background noise just when the object's position passed through the telescope's beam. The signal's timing and direction lined up with 3I Atlas, but its pattern did not match common human-made interference or known natural radio bursts. Wow. Okay, so this signal was strong enough to go above the normal background noise, basically opening the squelch, did not match human-made interference or known natural radio bursts. Wow. And researchers immediately ran through the usual checklist. They checked for satellites crossing the field of view. They examined logs for ground-based transmitters. They replayed the raw data with different filters to see if the spike could come from a software artifact or a receiver glitch, and the spike stayed. The signal lasted only a few minutes. Its frequency drifted slightly as if the source moved relative to the telescope. The intensity rose, then faded, rather than switching on and off like many kinds of interference. At the same time, the pattern did not match known signatures of common astrophysical transients, such as fast radio bursts or flares from dying stars. It looked weaker and more slowly varying, yet too structured to dismiss as random noise. Okay, so does not match human-made signals, did not match any astrophysical signals, like when there's a solar flare or a star is dying, they give off signals, okay? So this reminds me of the wow signal. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the wow signal. If you haven't, just Google wow signal. And this was a radio signal that was captured by the U.S. Space radio monitoring system. I think it was SETI. Very interesting situation with 3I Atlas. And the U.S. seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela yesterday. This is the first time that the U.S. has done that. The tanker's name and origin were not initially provided. The vessel was sanctioned. U.S. officials say it was a Coast Guard-led operation with support from the U.S. Navy. Trump said the U.S. government will keep the oil from the seized Venezuelan tanker. Trump said yesterday, "We have just seized a tanker off the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large, the largest one ever seized." And according to CBS News, the oil tanker was Iranian, and it was a Guyana-flagged ship. It was called the MT Skipper, and the operation was carried out at 0600 local time and involved two MH-60 Seahawk helicopters with U.S. Special Forces, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen. The MT Skipper had reportedly been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury since 2022 for its ties to the Iranian IRGC and Hezbollah. So an Iranian tanker going to Venezuela, and the largest seizure by the U.S. ever. And we're going to keep the oil. Now, what's interesting is just a few hours before this operation took place on Wednesday morning, we were live and we heard a burst of about a dozen U.S. nuclear codes back to back in like a 45-minute period. And we were all concerned in the live stream that something may be going down. And that's why I always say that the nuclear codes are important to pay attention to, and why I always talk about them, because they are an indicator of things that are about to happen. Okay, and people say that, oh, you always say that and nothing ever happens. Well, it did happen, and we were listening to the nuclear codes just hours before. That's why you got to tune into the live streams, and that's why you got to download my app, because I was sending out alerts through my app. Okay. And the oil tanker seized by the U.S. was en route to Cuba, and the seizure came after deliberate planning, and there was no resistance from the crew. There were no casualties as part of the operation. Trump said yesterday, with regards to the president of Colombia, he said he better wise up or he will be next. I hope he is listening. He will be next. Wow. So Trump wants to go after Colombia as well. And last night, we had a U.S. B-52 strategic bomber off the coast of Venezuela again. And this afternoon, we've been hearing a lot of nuclear codes back to back. Also, late last night, a lot of nuclear codes back to back. But another B-52 flying off the coast of Venezuela. Also, an attack on Venezuela could be imminent, or possible land strikes on Latin America. There were several U.S. Navy E-18 Growlers, which are electronic warfare aircraft, spotted in Puerto Rico on December 9th, likely from the Electronic Attack Squadron 132, known as the Scorpions, and they transited across the U.S. from their home base in Whidbey Island, Washington. And what's very interesting about these electronic warfare planes is that they carry a significant legacy highlighted by combat operations in Vietnam, Desert Storm, and more recent deployments to Iraq, South Korea, and Japan. For electronic attack missions, they specialize in suppressing enemy air defenses through jamming radars, communications, and GPS signals. So these are fighter jets, guys. They look like F-18s, but they can jam signals, okay, radios, radars, and GPS. That's what they do. They're electronic attack planes, okay, and that's what you would need if you were doing a big attack of, let's say, Venezuela, would be to suppress all of their communications before you make your attack, okay? This is absolutely huge news, and this was confirmed by footage, actual pictures, people seeing them in Puerto Rico at the Roosevelt Roads Naval Air Base in Puerto Rico. And this afternoon, we have a large movement of U.S. military aircraft to Puerto Rico. Look at this, guys. We got a C-5 Galaxy, which is the largest U.S. military cargo plane, going to Puerto Rico right now. We have a C-17, a large U.S. military cargo plane, and then we also have a C-130 from the Coast Guard going down to Puerto Rico, and then we have two U.S. Customs VIP planes going down to Puerto Rico. So this is huge news, guys. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to EMPshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video. So here you can see all these planes going from Florida down to Puerto Rico. And the Venezuelan president, Maduro, said, "In these times, things are different, but we must stand like warriors, women and men with both eyes open, always working, producing, building, making everything function, and ready, if necessary, to break the teeth of the North American empire from Bolivar's homeland." Wow. Break the teeth of the North American empire. Wow. He's talking about the U.S., obviously. And Simon Bolivar liberated Venezuela and Colombia and the surrounding countries from the Spanish Empire. So he's calling on historical figures here to try to motivate Venezuelans to fight against the U.S. And the Wall Street Journal reported about the Venezuelan opposition leaders' exit from Venezuela. Apparently, in order to leave Venezuela in secret, Maria Machado wore a wig and snuck past 10 military checkpoints on the way to the coast. Then she jumped on a wooden boat through strong winds and choppy seas to the neighboring country of Curacao. And apparently Trump arranged all of this through a private contractor, probably like Blackwater or somebody like that, specializing in VIP protection and exfiltration. And we're hearing that Putin and Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, called Maduro today to talk about everything going on. And last night there were a large amount of Ukrainian drones that attacked Russia. It was so serious that multiple airports in Moscow had to be closed, and also a thermal power plant in the western Russian city of Smolensk was taken out. Now, also, 2 days ago, there was a massive fire at a street market in St. Petersburg, Russia. Apparently, one man died. This was at the Prava-Berezhny market. According to the emergency ministry in Russia, in addition to firefighters, a mobile chemical and radiological laboratory was deployed to the site, testing for harmful substances in the area around the fire. So this mysterious fire burning down a huge street market. And I'm thinking back to, I think it was either a year ago or 2 years ago, when this street market near Warsaw in Poland suddenly burned to the ground, and they suspected it were Russian saboteurs behind that fire that burned down this huge market near Warsaw. And now suddenly a market in St. Petersburg, Putin's hometown, burns to the ground. So I wonder if maybe Polish security services or secret services were behind this. And U.S. B-52 nuclear bombers escorted by F-35s flew over the Sea of Japan with Japanese fighter jets yesterday as a show of force after Chinese and Russian military aircraft flew towards Japan and South Korea. So we know that Chinese bombers and I think Russian fighter jets were violating the South Korean Air Defense Identification Zone just about a day ago, and then immediately after we deploy F-35s and B-52s. So things are escalating over there. And we also had this U.S. Navy recon drone patrolling the Bay of Campeche and the Yucatan Peninsula. This has turned into a nightly occurrence. Right around midnight Eastern time, this thing flies out of Florida and patrols this area here for some reason. I don't know if they're going to be striking cartels in this location or maybe looking for boats to intercept. We also had a U.S. Air Force Rivet Joint, which is a recon plane in the Yellow Sea between South Korea and China last night. And then here you can see a picture of the B-52s being escorted by fighter jets, probably Japanese F-16s it looks like. And in the annual report of the Danish Defense Intelligence Service, the U.S. has been named a potential threat to Denmark's national security for the first time amid Trump's claims on Greenland. And according to Axios, citing official Ukrainian and U.S. sources, Ukraine has submitted its response to the latest draft U.S. peace plan to the Trump administration, and we're hearing that Ukraine's response includes new ideas on territorial issues and the status of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The response includes amendments to make everything feasible. It is expected that top U.S. and Ukrainian military officials will hold an online meeting today to discuss specific parts of the peace plan. And senior U.S. officials are expected to meet with delegates from Ukraine, Britain, France, and Germany this weekend in Paris to discuss Trump's peace plan towards ending the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a White House official told Axios, with the meeting following a call Wednesday between Trump and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Macron, and German Chancellor Merz. So Trump did talk to Merz, Macron, and Starmer yesterday. So big meeting this weekend. And the German Chancellor Merz said any negotiated solution needs to preserve European security interests. It must not come at the expense of the unity of the European Union and NATO. No peace must be made without us being involved. Wow. Huge statement there from Merz. And Trump said the Europeans want to meet with Zelensky and with us this weekend. We want to find out a few things before the meeting. We don't want to waste time. He also said that there needs to be elections in Ukraine. He said this is not throwing shade on anyone, but they have a huge corruption problem there, and people are asking when will there be elections. He also said Zelensky needs to be realistic. They haven't had elections in a long time. They are losing a huge number of people. And he also claimed that 82% of Ukrainians demand to reach an agreement. They want an agreement to be concluded, which is actually not true. 82% of Ukrainians do not want to reach an agreement. They want to continue fighting against Russia. And the U.S. handed Europe a secret plan for bringing Russia back into the global economy. And overnight, last night, for the first time since the Russian invasion of Ukraine began, the Ukrainian military carried out a drone attack on Lukoil's Filanovsky oil platform, part of Russia's largest oil field in the Caspian Sea, with at least 4 long-range attack drones striking the platform, starting several fires and forcing extraction to stop at more than 20 oil and gas wells in the Caspian Sea. Wow, huge news. And Taiwan's deputy foreign minister made a secret visit to Israel in recent weeks as Taiwan seeks closer defense ties and looks to Israel's missile defense systems as a model for its new T-Dome project. The trip was not publicly disclosed, okay? So Taiwan wants some of Israel's ballistic missile interceptor technology, their Iron Dome. They're interested in their Iron Dome and their Arrow system. And Thailand's military has detected that Cambodia has deployed long-range rocket systems on the border. And the U.S. House passed the $900 billion defense budget yesterday. 18 Republicans voted no, and 94 Democrats voted no. Isn't that crazy, guys? We have $38 trillion in debt, but we're willing to pay $1 trillion for our defense budget. Absolutely insane. And then here we have a U.S. Air Force recon drone that was patrolling the border of Russia in Eastern Europe last night, flying through Poland and the Baltics. And then here we have some footage of Thai forces being moved to the border of Cambodia. These look like armored personnel carriers, okay, rushing to the border. And then it looks like Singapore is helping Thailand. Here we have a Singapore C-130 and a Singapore aerial refueler. And then we also had a U.S. Navy sub-hunter fly into the South China Sea yesterday. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with some live coverage. So until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.